the 44 car of Martin Ragginger, who shares his Falcon-tired Porsche with Klaus Bachler, Sven Muller and Peter Dumbreck. But it is Ragginger who's been put in for the qualifying duties, 10 seconds adrift. Then you've got Klaus Bachler, who's actually named against both of the Falcon Motorsport Porsches. They were drawn, and this is a completely random draw, by the way, for the order that the cars are flagged off in. Actually drawn next to one another, the two Falcon Porsches, 44 ahead of 33 on the road. And then it's the 18 car for KCMG, driven by Dennis Olsen, whose name again appears next to both of the KCMG entries, 18 and 19, neither of which have already pre-qualified for qualifying 2. 21, Conrad Motorsport, the Lamborghini Huracan, topping the times when you combine qualifying 1, 2 and 3. Remember, all those times set by GT3/ASP9 cars are irrelevant. We're wiping the slate clean, and you set your time for the grid in this session or the next. Sent off in 6th position was the 35 SP Pro entered Black Falcon Team Identica Porsche 911 GT3 Cup MR car, and who've they put into that car? Tobias Muller, sharing the car with Marek Bockman, Carlos Rivas and Mike Rosenberg, but it is Tobias Muller driving the 35. Next on the road, therefore 7th, is the Auto Arena Mercedes from Team HRT with Patrick Assenheimer at the wheel. A big responsibility on the 28-year-old shoulders then, because he's the silver graded driver, but it is very much Patrick's team, his family. So deciding not to use Don Baumann or Dirk Muller or Maro Engel, Patrick Assenheimer qualifying car number 6. 8th on the road will be the number 4 HRT Mercedes. That's the orange and black car for Maro Engel. 9th position on the road is the Mercedes of Nico Bastian, another entry from HRT, and that's the car that was crashed last night with Jelmer Berman at the wheel. But they've located a brand new chassis, and the car looks resplendent in its mixture of silver and yellow and blue livery. 22, Daniel Juncadella, the Spanish driver, and he's at the wheel of the 10Q Racing Team Hauer and Zabel Mercedes. So that's next on the road. 704, the Glickenhaus car, the Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus entered 004C with Felipe Fernandez Lada at the wheel of that. 31 is next, which is one of the Fricadelli Porsches, the Pro entered Fricadelli Porsche, with Mathieu Jaminet doing the driving. We've got the 5 car of Frank Stippler, which is the Phoenix racing car that Frank's actually sharing this weekend with, what I mean is he's on double duty in the 1 and the 5, and possibly not a difficult choice to get him in for qualifying. The 15 car, which is the Race Inc, powered by HFG Audi of Rahel Fry, another Pro-Am car. And we're nearly at the back of the 17 that will take this session. The 19 sister KCMG car with Josh Burden, the young Tasmanian, at the wheel. We've got 25, the Uber Motorsport Porsche for Mark Holzer. And that's another 911 GT3R. And finally, the 16 machine for Helle Padgett. That's the Goodyear shod Ferrari for Jules Szymkowiak. And that is 17 runners. As I said, it was due to be 18, and I think the one we're missing is car 7, which, after Miro Konopka was caught doing 215 kph through a double waved yellow, he not only was disqualified from the meeting, but also the number 7 car has been told it cannot take part in qualifying. So instead, the number 7 car collection Audi is going to start from the end of Group 1 on Saturday following that penalty, and will no longer run with Miro Konopka. It'll just be Milan Doncha, Patrick Niederhauser and Mike David Ortman. It's also my understanding that not only does that car start at the back of its start group, it's also going to have to start from the pit lane. So a double, near triple whammy for the number 7 car, and evidence yet further that the Clark of the course really is not a fan of doing, well over 3 figures through a double waved yellow. And then when he reached the code 60, he was also pinged at doing 70 kph through there. So a firm message, as you were making the point earlier on, out to everybody.
And the correct one as well, I think. There's a reason that they've got stricter and stricter over this. Yourself and Paul Trods and I were talking about this a bit earlier, how they've tightened it up on the safety. The Nordschleife is an extraordinary circuit. The cars have got so much quicker over the years. It's only right. You have to earn the ring license now, and there's a whole set of procedures getting that through and getting through at certain times and simulators and all sorts. So it's quite right. And not only is it from a safety point of view from that driver, and I feel for them quite naturally in the team. I get that, and I'm no way gloating on that for a minute, but there is a safety message being sent out there. I think the most important thing, as you're saying there, JP, is that it's a message to everybody else. You transgress to that degree,
yeah.
And as you said, 215k is
in double yellows, yeah.
In double yellow, that's a lot of clicks, too many, isn't it?
It is.
And then 70 in a slow zone as well. Yeah, come on, it's not really defensible, is it? So quite right. It's a warning to everybody else of, come on, boys, girls, play nicely, play fairly.
Yeah.
More importantly, play safely.
Yeah, so a reminder of what this session is trying to achieve. Remember, this is top qualifying 1. If you finish in the top 4 of this session on times, you will automatically progress into top qualifying 2, and that determines the front 17 cars on the grid. So this is sort of, if you fans of Formula 1, this is like qualifying 1 to get you into qualifying 2, or Q2 to get you into Q3. It's really a mechanism to tack onto the back of the 13 cars that have already been pre-qualified into Q2. And of course, if you don't make it, then the best you will start is 18th position. And therefore, this session will set grid spots 18 down to, well, as it turns out, 30, because we have 30 cars in the session, minus, of course, or without the number 7 car collection Audi. But there is the SP Pro car in, number 35, and the SPX car to keep our eyes on, and it's going to be wonderful to find out exactly what sort of pace those guys are offering. They're not in, technically speaking, the SP9 class, but they can still offer the same sort of speed. And actually, the Glickenhaus car and drivers of that year are very much present on the pole position trophy that was being displayed on a plinth on the start-finish line before we got going. And we'll be adding yet another name to that at the end of these 2 sessions. So, also just getting some information regarding the weather prior to this session, raining on and off leading into it. I haven't yet spotted much rain around leaving the clouds above, but definitely the road surface is wet, and the fact that one of the KCMG Porsches is virtually glued to the pit wall down the start-finish line indicates to me that that car has started on wet weather tyres and is hunting around already for the damp stuff. But this is where it really counts. The first of 2 laps for car number 18 for Dennis Olsen. Now, he was not waved on to the lead, but I think he's become the first car in the sequence. This car was released in 4th position from the grid, but I noticed that behind him is at least one of the 2 Falcon Motorsport Porsches, and they started ahead of him on the dummy grid. So Olsen not hanging around on the warm-up lap, clearly realizing that that was useful time to get tyre temperature sky high.
Well, just watching those cars on the warm-up lap, Johnny, I noticed that there were quite a few that caught up. We thought there were 30-second gaps. It turned out to be 10-second gaps consistently, so that was our error. Sorry for misleading folks. It was 10 seconds they set off. That then did surprise me how quickly cars started to catch up and how many times we saw pairings. We waxed lyrical at the beginning of this, having the Nordschleife to yourself. Well, straight away, there were 2 or 3 or 4 groups in pairs already, a brace of cars, where you haven't got it to yourself. And obviously got different strategies for that warm-up lap, given the heat into those tyres. The track is not dry. There's a tiny bit of a dry line down towards the end of the GP circuit there. I can see a little bit, but fundamentally I would say it's pretty well it's a wet circuit, certainly on the Nordschleife. Watch the number 18 KCMG Porsche though. That car, it's certainly, even at the end of its out lap, as it were, where it's got into Dennis Olsen in that car at the moment. Front end, all sorts of trouble getting that front end to stick. And ironically, it was mid-corner. Just looking at it there, it was turning. The initial turn-in didn't appear to be so bad. Then all of a sudden, the front was kicking out, and it was almost like watching a kart at Daytona Kart Raceway or something. It's twitching. It just hadn't got that front-end bite. And we were talking about this earlier, weren't we, about the difference between front engine, rear engine, mid-engine, whatever. Porsche, very much a rear engine car, that kind of right out the back there. And as Paul said earlier, quite rightly, it's free weight over the driven wheels. Yes, it is, but the flip side of that, and Paul's absolutely right, but the flip side of that is that these Porsches are notorious for having no weight on the front. Now, I'm not saying KTMG and Falcon and other people and Peter Dunbrett that drive them haven't got their heads around that. Obviously they have, but still fundamentally, it's light on the front, apart from, of course, the fuel tanks down there.
Yeah.
Now, there's no fuel in it much for qualifying, so I'm probably painting too much of a picture here, but it's not got a tank full of fuel for the 24-hour. It's got enough to do qualifying.
Of course, it's because it's in qualifying mode. No, the only reason I was sort of squinting there was I was thinking, right, if these cars make it into the top 4, you then progress into qualifying 2. I was thinking, can they refuel? Well, you can, because otherwise you're going to be at a disadvantage to those cars that are already into Q2. So there is the chance, although the cars will get, the top 4 will go into Parc Fermé, immediately the team will be permitted to put more fuel into it for 2 further laps. So bear in mind, you're not going to get pole out of this, because none of the cars are competing for that just yet. All you're trying to do is finish in the top 4, and that will give you the opportunity to go for pole in the next session. This is Top Qualifying 1. You are tuned to the Radio Show Limited network of channels, RS1 with Peter Snowden and with Johnny Palmer. And the two, actually two similarly liveried cars, but very different teams, Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini, getting ahead as well of one of the Falcon Motorsport cars. Marco Mapelli started behind both the 33 and the 44, but is ahead on the road now of at least one of them.
Well, these are the conditions, perfect conditions that Paul Tresor was alluding to earlier regarding the 2 types of compound of intermediate tyre they can have. It's not a slick tyre yet, to be very brave. Although, ironically, towards the later in the bit of this session, a slick is probably optional. So the Top Qualifying 2 might well be on slicks. I'll be very surprised if everybody's out there on slicks at the moment. Watching the cars going around there, I wouldn't say there's spray, but there's a haze, there's a film behind the car. There's definitely, they're lifting something out of the track surface, but not a lot. And I don't think it'll take much for this track to dry out. And that could, again, cause yet another problem, because it's 2.5 hours of qualifying. And there is a break, but you say you can refuel the car. How much fuel did they put in them? How much weight did they go? Watching the number 44 Porsche there, the Falcon car driver, Pierre Caffer. Again, it turned in for a corner, but it washed out mid-corner. And he had a little moment on the exit, just isn't quite as stable and precise as you would normally expect. They're literally on point all the time, click, 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 click. It's almost metronomic, and you could just see there, and it wasn't a question of them pushing, it's the track conditions. They're not very nice. I'm not sure I'd want to be driving a Porsche out there at the moment, but I wouldn't say no, but I would prefer a Mercedes still.
Well, the longest sector on the lap, so far at least, for Dennis Olsen. By the way, he is the first car on the road, despite being released from the dummy grid in 4th, so he's already done 3 overtakes, and that, of course, ensures got clear road in front of him, completely clear road in front of him. He's just done a 2:03.4 through sector 5, which is the very long one indeed, heading, I think, up the hill towards Kesselchen. My track map's disappeared to the floor, but there are 9 sectors on this lap, remember? Might have just found it, actually. It's okay, just found it. So sector 5 takes you from Schwedenkreuz, which is where Jelmer Berman had his crash late last night, all the way through to Breitscheid, which is the lowest part of the circuit. And Dennis Olsen's just done a 2:03.4, which is 3 seconds quicker than anybody else that has completed that part of the circuit so far. However, Mauro Engel with 2 absolute best sectors earlier on in the lap in the number 4 Mercedes, and we're seeing 1 or 2 other very impressive sector times, i.e. purple ones, for Mathieu Jaminet on the Grand Prix circuit in his number 31 Fricadelli Racing Porsche. And the shortest sector on the lap, which is actually sector 3, which stretches from, sector 4 rather, that stretches from Kittelbacher to Schwedenkreuz, 11 seconds of it, but Frank Schnippler was fastest through there. So I think Dennis Olsen will be the first to appear at the start of the Dottinger Höhe, and then it is all about how your car travels through the air on its own, because yes, track position is one thing. What you won't get, though, down the long straight at the end of the lap is any hint of a toe, because you are first on the road. and it might be wise to get relatively close to somebody else in this qualifying one session to be drawn along by that huge hole punched in the air by a fellow GT3 car.
And again, just Mauro Engel on board on the Mercedes down through Exmüller, Asphalt, and down to Bergwerk. Really still wet in there under the trees. You can see it totally different to other parts of the circuit. Very wet, and it's exactly what we're saying is it's yet more different conditions. You've got one bit. It's hard to convey. I'm almost wary of repeating myself on this. It's such a long circuit. It's like driving 5 circuits. You suddenly drive one bit and it's lovely, it's dry, it's sunny, it's almost autumnal. We're here in late September and there's rain coming down, or there's not, and it's wet, and it's this bit down to Bergwerk wasn't looking very pretty. Where they are now, Fuchsholer, it's nice and dry. Complete dry line.
Dennis Olsen is on the absolute limit here. So cool to see the Norwegian just drive the wheels off this KCMG Porsche. He was fully off the road, and in terms of vertically at Flansgarten, and some corrective steering required going into Schwalbenschwanz as well.
Dennis Olsen, wiper going furiously as well.
Yeah, it is.
Consistently.
Yeah, so
and he's not following any cars, so no reason to.
No, so there's obviously rain in the air. There is a dry line on the run into the double right-hander at Galgenkopf, which is oh so crucial. It's a double apex right-hander, and it steadily opens up onto the Dottinger Hohe. And as I say, no car in front of him that he can use that toe, but I don't think it really matters. He couldn't be any further left currently. You said, got to steer clear of the white lines. Well, try telling Dennis Olsen that as he goes, churns up so many leaves as well from the trees that are in full fall at this time of year, but he still keeps the car clamped to the left-hand side of the circuit, headlights ablaze. He will be the first car to complete a lap, and I think this will be very impressive indeed. Should be good enough, I would say, just visually, to put him into the top 4 probably by the end of this session, because I don't think anybody else has been quite as committed as this. Mauro Engel will run him close, because actually, looking back at the middle sector time, or rather the long sector 5 time, Engel's gone even quicker than Dennis Olsen. So as a benchmark figure, this will be a very good reference point. Dennis Olsen across the line to complete 1 of 2 laps for qualifying 1, and it is a 9:18.791. Yes, we've seen quicker through the last 2 days. We got down to an 8:11.4, but that was in the dry, and already a car going incredibly slowly. Looks to be one of the 2, I think the 44 of the Falcon Motorsport machines. Not sure whether he backed out of things there.
Interesting, that Dennis Olsen time is 20 seconds quicker than this morning, 3 hours ago.
Yes.
That's already straight out the box, 20 seconds quicker. It did absolutely shoot into camera sight there when we saw it at the top of the screen, and that came in. I wish you guys could have seen that. It was incredible. It just appeared like an X-set out of left, camera left, but it was there. 9:18, Kaffer, 9:33, Raginger, 9:41. You said that was an absolutely stupendous lap from Backless, now gone second with the 9:31, 9:31.6, and Mapelli a 9:31.7, a 10th different over 25-kilometre lap.
That's incredible. 1300ths of a second separate Klaus Bachler from Marco Mapelli, but that's further evidence that Lamborghini this weekend is showing really good speed. Messages from the track tell me that it is now teeming down from just beyond Brunchen, although still sunny overhead, bizarrely. So we've got the sunshine in the sky, we've got the rain coming down on certain parts of the circuit, and the rainbow emerging as well above the Grand Prix Strecker.
Mauro Engel, 9:18.553. It's gone to the top of the timesheets, but I was just about to say Dennis Olsen may have played a blind there, getting that lap in with that rain coming down. We saw that wiper on, and we realised it definitely that's what's happening in that part of the circuit. But I thought he might have played a blinder there. But Mauro Engel, as you said, in that Mercedes was also appeared to be on it, and it did that same thing again. I'm not trying to devalue the Porsche, but the Porsche, the Mercedes just looks metronomically quick. It looks so solid, it looks like it's on rails. The Porsche still twitching and still bucking around a bit, but it's that car top. Mauro Engel in the Mercedes is at the top, the 9:18.553. Dennis Olsen second at the moment, a 9:18.791. That's all there is between them.
And Daniel Juncadella squeezing into 3rd position in the number 22. 10Q Racing Team Mercedes as well. So you've got AMG from Porsche, from AMG from Audi. Frank Stippler currently quickest in the cars with the 4 rings. Phoenix Racing entry that number 5, and the German goes across the line to post a 4th best sector time. What about Josh Burden in the sister car of Dennis Olsen that went so well in the hands of the Norwegian? Well, the number 19 car is about to come across the line, in fact has done now, and Burden will go 8th in car number 19. And what have we got, about 10 seconds between the 2 KCMG cars. More and more machines stream across the line. We're still waiting for Jules Szymkowiak to post his first time in the Hella Paget Ferrari, and the Goodyear shod car for Szymkowiak will go 12th fastest with a 9:37.6. So I did think Maro Engel was going to maybe pick Dennis Olsen to the first of the better times, because Engel had lit up the timing screen in at least 4 of the 9 sectors, and crucially Engel was very, very fast through sector 5, quicker than Dennis Olsen. But they've all got another stab at this. It just depends how much moisture we've had between the 2 times now, and whether there's even more time that it's possible to extract. Dennis Olsen, yes he has. So he's managed to be quicker through sector 1, which is pretty much the first half of the Grand Prix track. Sector 1 is from the start-finish line down to your braking point for the Dunlop hairpin. Sector 2, a longer one, which is the Grand Prix track from the Dunlop hairpin all the way back up to Hats and back. And what about Daniel Juncker-Deya's time through sector 3?
I was just going to say exactly that. It's a great time there. Certainly sector 3. He's gone quickest there. It's hard to describe 1 minute 13.4 for a sector.
I know. And that's
not the lap, a sector.
Even more brain calibration required, because we're racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife this weekend. So sector 3 shows that that Mercedes is good through the slower speed corners, the double left-hander, which first of all takes you onto the section over the road, the public road, and then you turn left again and head onto Hats and back, and the sector continues through all the way through to Kiddelbacher Hoor, that tricky right-hander just before Flugplatz. So Mercedes looking strong for both the Maro Engel and the Juncker-Deya cars, currently 1st and 3rd. But what do you reckon? I think part of this track, Peter, is going to be drier than it was last time, and other bits much, much wetter.
Spot on. Exactly what it is. It's tricky to say the least. Klaus Bachler on the back half of the second, number 33 Falcon Motorsports car, the 911 GT3, him sitting right behind, I think that's the Conrad Lamborghini, who's also struggling a little bit. We mentioned about that Lamborghini earlier, looking okay in terms of change of direction, but just not particularly stable in a straight line, bizarrely, as in it's just bucking and porpoising around a bit, and it's coming down towards Adenauer. Oh, big moment for the Conrad Lamborghini there as he turned in for the Adenauer bridge section, and is it the track, is it the car, is it a combination of both? But a huge twitch for the Conrad Lamborghini there. Really not something he's going to be wanting that. Who's in that car at the moment? We've got Mapelli, isn't it?
Yeah,
Marco Mapelli, who's he's fairly seasoned. He's got a bit of he's got a bit of experience, hasn't he?
He has, and of course he topped the times from qualifying 1, 2 and 3, the regular sessions, having set a very impressive 8:11.4 that we're going to get nowhere near in this wet session. But Marco Mapelli, the 33-year-old from Seregno in Italy, he's gold graded and a former champion in Blancpain across the various stages of that. Actually, 2019 was a very good year for him, and he is going to go from strength to strength, I'm sure, this year. So we're concentrating on the bottom, well, the top 4 in this session, which will become the bottom 4 for Q2. And so far, after 1 lap of 2, Maro Engel is in to qualifying 2, Dennis Olsen is in, Daniel Juncker-Deya is in, and Frank Stippler is in. But it could well change, because right on the bubble, Mathieu Jaminet, not quite in the top 4, but he's only got 1.8 seconds to try and find. Nico Bastian, 3.8 seconds, and Klaus Bachler, probably 4.3 seconds. So there are many cars that are really quite close to Frank Stippler's first effort. They don't need to do an awful lot more to force their way into the crucial top 4. out of Brunchen goes the number 18 car of Dennis Olsen. And there's a slippery surface flag out, I think, to indicate a little bit more moisture on the racetrack. That's not necessarily oil or something nasty that's coming out of another car, just to indicate that it's rained a little bit more since Dennis was around here, what, 9 and a bit minutes ago. That is a long time, and unlike a regular lap that might be 3, 4, 5 miles long, when you are around in relatively quick succession, 10 minutes, a whole new weather system might have arrived.
Two totally different things. It's a different race, it's a different session, but it, as you say, it is quite different. 10 minutes until you come back to the same spot. So much can change. Certainly in this microclimate we get in the Eifel Mountains here. We've just seen it. There was a slippery surface flag out, the red and yellow striped one, as you said, but I didn't really see any rain in particular. So I don't know whether it's just a warning of, as you said, that perhaps there had been a little bit of a downpour. It wasn't a lot there for the moment. No wipers on at the moment on some of these front-running cars.
As I said, some information coming through that Brunchen was very, very wet indeed. It had started to really pelt down, but it might have been a quick, short, sharp shower, which is really the order of the day on the forecast. Passing showers, but could be quite heavy at times. Maro Engel still happy to ride the curbs, though, which is a tad risky, you got to say. But Engel in a perfect position as the fastest car in the session so far. He is only, though, a quarter of a second clear of Dennis Olsen's time.
Frank Stifler just put in a very quick set to 6, 38.258. So he's pressing on as well. Currently on a 9:27.1. So I think Frank Stifler would want to get a little bit farther up there. He's in fourth at the moment, but he'd want to be that little bit higher, I think. The car right in front of him being the 10Q Racing Team Juncker car that's on a 9:24.7. So Frank Stifler will want to do something about that, I'm sure. Dennis Olsen, meantime, marches on imperiously in that checkered flag.
And it's a lot slower for Dennis Olsen. He's 14.5 seconds slower than his earlier effort. So there's an idea of how much wetter it's got out there. We picked up on the fact that he'd done an absolute best through half of the Grand Prix track, but after that he was just chasing his tail. And a 9:33 compared to his earlier effort of a 9:18.7. I think that's going to be the general theme of things, actually. The real bellwether driver for me will be Maro Engel. If he can find even more pace than a 9:18, then I'll take another look at the session. But I think first laps here for everybody will be sufficient. Over the line goes the number 11 Iron Force Racing Audi of Pierre Caffer. He as well is slower, but only by 5 seconds. And we did see some improvement for Martin Ragginger. His second lap was the better of the two, a 9:39.713, but still only good enough for 13th. And we're looking, remember, to try and find the top 4 drivers in this qualifying 1 session.
I'm still keen to see what Frank Stifler manages to pull out of the bag when he finishes his lap here.
Oh, Juncker-Dea's gone quicker, but can't still get any better than 3rd in the order. Engel ran it close, a 9:21.8 compared to his better lap of a 9:18.5, but he was only 3 and a bit seconds away. The Mercedes looking very strong, but Olsen hasn't managed to go quicker. At least he's second and will at this stage progress. Stifler, yes. What can he do? Mathieu Jaminet right on the bubble could yet improve as well.
Patrick Assenheimer, that's been in the front of all these NLS rounds so far, set a personal best of 9:30.1, but that's quite it's 12 seconds off at the moment. That's a man that's been a front runner in the name in our commentaries all the time in all previous rounds at NLS this year. So nothing particularly special for him there. He won't be very happy with that at all.
Here comes Mathieu Jaminet, and it's not an improvement, so I'm afraid he's not going to get into the top 4 with that second lap, a 9:32.848. He's 4 seconds slower. Frank Stifler, 6 tenths away from his better lap, but it's a 9:27.7 compared to Frank's earlier effort of a 9:27.1. He didn't actually need to improve because he occupies that crucial 4th position right now, but it's all about those behind that have still yet to stream across the line.
Yeah, Dennis Olsen pitted his say he didn't bother. Pierre Caffer also straight into the pits. Muller set a new personal best, dragging it into the pits as well. So I think that's pretty well where it's going to stand for us now. Mauro Engel at the top in the Mercedes on a 9:18.553 from Dennis Olsen in the Porsche with just a 9:18.791.
And Marco Holzer about to cross the line in the number 25 Porsche. That is an improvement for Marco, not on position, but at least for his lap time he found a little bit. And Jules Szymkowski also improves in the Hella Padgett Racing 1 Ferrari, and actually leaps ahead of Marco Holzer. So Szymkowiak will bag himself 12th in this session, and I'll work out in a moment where that will put him in the overall grid, because obviously you've got to take away 4 out of this and add those 4 to the 13 that have already qualified for the next part of the session. But I think we are pretty much there as far as the 4 cars that will leapfrog from one session to the next. They will be the number 4 Mercedes Team HRT entry for Mauro Engel. Number 4 gets pole position in this session, and that gives him 14th spot in the next session to gun for the front row. A 9:18.553 for Mauro Engel, and incredibly close on times was Dennis Olsen. The separation of the two, 0.238 of a second between a Mercedes and a Porsche. So that promises much as the officials try to balance the performance between very, very different cars. Daniel Juncadella gets the 22 10Q Racing Team car into qualifying 2, and also there Frank Stippler for Phoenix Racing, courtesy of a 9:27.130.
Dennis Olsen not improving on this second lap, whereas the guys you just mentioned there, Juncadella and Stippler and Assenheimer, Patrick Assenheimer, also improved on their second laps to get those cars further up the order there. So Juncadella, Stippler and Assenheimer in 3, 4 and 6th at the moment. So 3 and 4 are the ones that really count. So Engel, Olsen, Juncadella and Stippler in the top 4. Great to see that number 2 Mercedes out again. Quite apart from that, he's got the most stunning livery on it. I'd love to see that car close up, but it's not sure how much of the car that we see there is the car that took part yesterday. I'm sure there are various components. So a bit of Trigger's broom going on there, I'm quite sure, because that was a big old off. But doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is, firstly, the driver's okay, and Jan Bowman, and the fact that the car's out again racing and taking part today and will take part in the end. That's all that really matters. It's looking showroom new now. It's a bit dirty now. Having been around the Nordschleife in the rain for a bit.
And I'm sure a very, very late night for all those involved at HRT to get that car turned around. They had to first of all locate a new chassis, new shell, and put whatever they could find of the old car that was still straight in terms of body panels, and maybe transpose them across. But generally speaking, that is a brand new car. I've done my mathematics and have worked out then that we're in 30th position, and these are kosher grid positions now. The 30th position on the grid will be car 35, which is the SP Pro entered Black Falcon Team Identica Porsche 911 GT3 Cup MR, and starting alongside it on the 15th row will be car 15, the Race Ing Audi R8 that Rahel Frey has just qualified. The 14th row will have 44 and 704. That's quite disappointing actually for Falcon Motorsports. Remember, the 44 car had a crash yesterday with Peter Dumbreck at the wheel, and I just wonder whether they've not been able to run the ideal setup on that car today. There was an awful lot of repair work required overnight, and they put Martin Ragginger out in it for qualifying, but indicative there that it's not quite in the sweet spot just yet for qualifying. It'll start alongside the 704 Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus 004 of Felipe Fernandez-Laza, who did the qualifying. The 13th row will have on it the Hella Padgett Racing 1 Ferrari that Jules Szymkowiak has just qualified, and actually beating Marco Holzer in the Huber Motorsport Porsche at the last gasp. As Jules Szymkowiak came across the line, he managed to bag 12th position ahead of Holzer, shifting him from one side of the grid to the other. The 12th row will be 21 Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, which will not progress despite topping qualifying sessions 1, 2 and 3 when you combine those times. 21 alongside the 11 Iron Force Racing Audi of Pierre Caffer. The 11th row, so 21st and 22nd on the grid, will be the other Falcon Motorsports Porsche that was just qualified by Klaus Bachler alongside the 19 KCMG Porsche with Josh Burden setting the time. So 33 and 19 from the 11th row. The 10th row, which is also set in stone now, will be the number 6 Mercedes from Team HRT Auto Arena for Patrick Assenheimer and the rest of his teammates, alongside the number 2 car for Nico Bastian, another HRT entry for Mercedes. And then we can confirm in 18th position on the grid the Fricadelli Racing Porsche that Mathieu Jaminet has just qualified, and he came so close to being involved with the next session. 1.8 seconds is all that he needed to find, but I'm afraid the second lap was much wetter and the grip just wasn't there for Mathieu Jaminet, so he'll have to make do with an 18th place grid slot. The other 17 cars ahead of him, we are still to set the order there, and obviously we're going to add in an additional 13 cars that have been waiting patiently round the back of the garages in their own little assembly area. It's going to be a bit of time for the 4 cars that progress from one session to the other as they head into Parc Fermé for some post-session checks, but crucially they will also be filled full of fuel to allow them to complete a rolling lap and 2 quick ones. Not filled, topped up. Topped up. Yeah, I agree, because you don't want to put race fuel mileage in there. That would put you at a
driver will not thank you for that.
Disadvantage, indeed. Yeah.
He'll get his green shield stamps, but people now, Kerry's laughing, but people know on earth I'm talking about now. It's an old thing, but I'm sure somebody on Twitter will tell us what green shield stamps are. Johnny has no idea what I'm talking about.
I have no idea whatsoever.
No.
Now, from the perspective of a driver that's just been out and done 3 laps, compared to those that haven't done any time at all, I mean, that's got to be an advantage as far as current conditions are concerned.
Of course it has. Of course it has. And again, that thing I refer to frequently, but it's also that psychological advantage. You go out there knowing, oh, you haven't seen this, I have. That can also work against you because you get, I wouldn't say cocky, but you can get complacent, you can get overconfident.
Yeah.
And we saw that some of those cars there in those conditions, and we mentioned it a good few times there, just how tricky it was and how different and how varied it was around that lap. And you can suddenly go, oh, I've done this, I've done it, I'm so okay, and all of a sudden it isn't, and it's different. And we've got a bit of a gap in time. And as you said, it's 10 minutes a lap, basically. You know, I know the lap time's slightly less, but that's what before you come round again. So much can change. A bit of rain comes in. We saw that rain in that session there, only on one part of the circuit, to the point that they put a slippery surface flag out. And by the time the cars that first received that slippery surface flag came round again, the conditions were totally different.
Yes.
Just 10 minutes later.
And again, that's one of many unique things about this racetrack is, yes, you cannot judge the progression from one weather type to another because it's completely changed potentially the next time you come around. Dennis Olsen, maybe he needs to get a Euro Millions ticket tonight, because not only did he head the first car on the road for qualifying 1, but out of the draw for the second qualifying, he's at the front of the queue again in the KCMG Porsche. And the draw, by the way, was done, there were separate draws, Q1 and Q2. Obviously, when you're drawing Q2 out, nobody quite knew who was going to occupy those top 4 positions. But Dennis Olsen is now gearing himself up for the next session, and Frank Stippler actually fully in the zone, eyes closed, and getting. I mean, you could forgive him for almost falling asleep in the car.
It looks like he's falling asleep. I remember Justin Bell telling me years ago that one of his most comfortable places in the world to sleep was in the driving seat of his Viper, and he'd sit there and practice when they were doing brake changes and things doing testing. He'd quite often not get out of the car. He'd sit there and have a semi-little snooze while they change brake discs and stuff, and then wake up and say, oh, tap him on the lid, and off you go. Yeah, Frank Stippler there looking very calm. Eyes. He was not asleep at all, but eyes clearly closed, getting himself into that zone. Bright sunlight there is over on the far end of the Grand Prix circuit now, which means that bit's going to be dry. We saw that, didn't we, at the beginning of that very first, that top 1 qualifying 1, that it was nice and sunny over that side of the circuit. But oh, so different when it comes out onto the Nordschleife, to the point that just I'm going to say a handful of corners later, but of course a handful of corners at the Nürburgring can be 30, 40, 20, 30, 40 corners, and you haven't really got that far in that time, which is ridiculous when you think about it. It still amazes me that we have to say those things, and 10 minutes before the car comes round again.
Yeah.
But bright and sunny over on the Grand Prix side of the circuit. We did the weather forecast earlier saying it's going to get better, it's going to get brighter here now. So a whole different set of track conditions just half an hour later.
I think we are actually going steadily in the right direction as far as weather's concerned, though, although
until tomorrow.
Up in the sky there's some rainfall. Down on the ground it is warming nicely, and it's interesting to look back on the number of drivers that were able to improve with their second lap. Daniel Juncadella, who was already third but sort of cemented that position. Frank Stippler was able to find more grip as well, as was Patrick Assenheimer in the Auto Arena car, Mercedes number 6. Josh Burden, I think I mentioned that, as he came across the line in the 19 KCMG. Jules Simkowiak, Martin Ragginger, Mark Holzer, Felipe Fernandez-Larza, and the Muller and Fry cars as well. So maybe there is some grip out there if you're willing to find it, and tyre choice now is going to be so crucial too. Although, trying to think back to the regulations as to whether I think the 4 that progress must be able to change tyres, otherwise again the 13 that are already there could be on fresh ones, and those that have progressed will have already gone on 3 laps. So the opportunity to put a little bit of fuel into the 4 cars that cross from one session to the other, and I'm sure to change tyres as well. Let me tell you then where the 4 that are through: Dennis Olsen for KCMG, Frank Stippler for Phoenix, Maro Engel for HRT, and Daniel Juncadella also for the number Juncadella rather for the 22 crew. This is where they have been drawn. Olsen, as I said, front row of the steady stream of cars that will be released at 10-second intervals. He starts out front in front of probably Alexander Sims, but we'll confirm that in a moment. Frank Stippler. I think it's
Yellowly in that first.
Yellowly, okay, thank you. And third then on the road will be Frank Stippler. 5th on the road for Engel. So 3/4 of those that have moved from one session to the other have really good starting spots. 1st, 3rd and 5th, and you have to look back to 11th position for Spaniard Daniel Juncadella. So he properly starts in the midfield, and I don't think we're going to see a Dennis Olsen there when he can overtake all the cars in front of him to see a clear road out front. Have had confirmation actually of the starting drivers. Just need to find the right chat in order to get that. Yeah, you're quite right. It is Nick Yellowly for the 99 car. It will be in the 30, one of the Mullers, of which we have several, and that will be Alex Muller in the number 30 car. Maro Engel next, as I mentioned. In the 29, it'll be Chris Meese. It will be in the number 10 Mercedes Maxime Soulé. That's the car that he shares with Marcus Paltela and the 2 Schaffners, husband and wife team John and Janine. Janine Hill, you may know her as, but Janine Schaffner, as she's down on the entry list to join husband John Schaffner. And some late deals to get Finn, Marcus Paltela and Maxime Soulé for their Pro-Am entry. We got Fred Vervisch in the number 1 Audi to start from 8th place in top qualifying 2. The 98 BMW will be driven by Marco Wittmann. 10th place for the 101 Christian Krognes driven BMW for Valkenhorst. 98 Wittmann in the Rover Racing BMW. Juncadella, number 22 in his Mercedes, will start 11th on the road. 12th position, Mathieu Vaxivière in his Mercedes, car number 8. Next in line is Augusto Farfus for the Schnitzer BMW, number 42. Mirko Bortolotti for car number 3, another Audi Sport Team entry. The R8 LMS, of course. 15th in line will be another Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW with Henry Valkenhorst himself. 16th in line will be the number 9 Mercedes of Raffaele Marciello. So I would suggest we keep our eyes trained to the timing and scoring screen until the Italian comes through. And finally, Luca Ludwig in the number 26 Ferrari will start 17th, the car he shares with Bjorn Grossman, Simon Trummer and Jonathan Hershey. So the cars that will take part in qualifying 2 are currently on the apron. Excepting the 4 that have moved from Q1 to Q2, they will be at the back of the garages in their own separate parc fermé area, getting fuel and switching tyres. Paul Truswell just sending me a quick note to say he's got his favourite there, certain Mirko Bortolotti from 14th in line. Well, yes, he's one of about 6 that I could pick, maybe more. And you can look at the driver's form through the years, and particularly through 2020, although I admit there's not been a great deal of motorsport through this terrible year. But then I think the weather is going to have the final say. And at which point are you going to arrive at the really tricky corners? How much moisture will be beneath your tyres? There's also, you've got to be thinking about which tyres each car is on, because Dennis Olsen in his number 18 car runs Michelin's, but we do have Goodyears represented from the Octane 126 Ferrari, for instance, and the 2 Volkenhorst Motorsport BMWs, 100 and 101, are on the Yokos. Picture perfect Grand Prix circuit right now, with yes, a lot of cloud cover, but the sun is piercing through. It's just gone 6:30 local time at the Nürburgring, and if the sunset is as good tonight as it's going to be tomorrow night, then all the photographers on site are thoroughly going to enjoy that transition phase in the race from evening light to full darkness.
Well, you've gone all artistic and romantic there. I could see
I'm trying.
Almost had a tear in your eye there, glistening, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm seeing another side of you there, Johnny. I didn't realise you could wax.
Oh, no, it's always there. You just don't often see it.
Wistful there, didn't you? I would say, just to completely have a look at the weather forecast, completely change that. Enjoy it while you can, because I think tomorrow it's due to precipitate quite a lot. Yeah. At the moment, 99% chance I think for the day, and it's pretty well there for the day. There is. It just seems strange talking at the Nürburgring 24 hours, seeing people in the grandstands in the autumn sunshine, because we're not used to this. It's very strange.
For 24.
Normally, no, so May, June at best normally. But weather forecast for tomorrow, I was just talking about. It's not looking good. It is going to dry out tonight. The track will dry out, I guess, overnight. But for tomorrow, it's not looking very pretty. It's going to be fairly heavy rain, and it's going to ease off mid-afternoonish. So
okay.
about start time. Guess what, though? About 5 or 6 o'clock, about this time tomorrow, so not the clock on 24 hours, it starts getting heavy again. Just as they want to start getting into twilight, which drivers did they do? Which drivers did they put in the car strategy-wise to go into that session? Just more fun. Why not? Add it into the mix.
And another huge factor is the lack of heat we're going to have in the day tomorrow. A high of 8 degrees Celsius with only a small amount of sunshine. The weather that I had a look at this morning says very cold for Saturday, unsettled weather, fresh, gusty, westerly winds, could be as high as 40 kilometers per hour. Yeah, blowing clouds and single rain showers into the Nürburgring, but 8 degrees is a high. You know, and you think about in Europe, midweek we were mid-20s, late 20s maybe, and all of a sudden the wind change, all coming in from Greenland, I'm told now, turns it into Arctic type weather.
And of course, one of the differences is between the race and qualifying, you're talking about temperatures, is tyre temperatures. Because in the race, you get a stint. We get 7-8 laps a stint. We've seen that in the NLS previous round. So they get plenty of heat into the tyre. The difference being on the qualifying session here, they only get 2 runs. Now, that means you can get surface temperature into the tyre, but as Paul Truswell's quite rightly said, what about core temperature? What about getting it really deep into that tyre so the thing's actually working? Not just getting a bit of heat on the top of the surface. You've got 2 laps. It does make a difference, and tyres are probably the outside of the driver, which we said yesterday is the most easily changed component on a racing car. Tyres are the most critical element. It's the only part of the car that is, or should be, in contact with the road surface.
Well,
some others had different ideas yesterday.
Yes, and there are certain parts of the lap round here where your tyres aren't in contact with the ground at all.
So tyre wear.
That's true, and makes Flugplatz and Flansgarten very interesting indeed. So a reminder of the order of the cars, where they're being released now from pit lane, and whereas before the cars were sent away from the start-finish line, I just wonder whether this is, first of all, to send the cars out to that point of the track. So they're being released from the pit lane to do a full lap of the Grand Prix circuit, and then we'll park up on start-finish straight, I believe, nose to tail, and be sent away at 10-second intervals. So this is merely to get their cars out onto the racetrack. And also, I'm reminded that tyre warmers are allowed here. Maximum temps out of the blankets are 50 degrees Celsius. For the wets, it's 80 degrees Celsius. Sorry, big pardon, 50 degrees for the wets, 80 degrees Celsius for the slicks. And yeah, that can be done prior to the next stint, and I presume before each of the different segments of Q1 and Q2 as well. So nobody's going to turn left onto the Nordschleife. That's exactly what's happening. Everyone, all the cars have been released from the pit lane and will now line up nose to tail on the start-finish line and be waved away by the starter with his flag at 10-second intervals into qualifying 2. And we are about 7 minutes away from the start of that session properly.
Just you said about tyre warmers, getting the tyres up to the temperature they possibly can before they go onto the car, put them in the blankets, and away they go. And go and park up. Of course, depending on how long they park up for, most of that temperature will disappear again. Yeah. So is it almost a pointless exercise? I don't know. It's been declared as a wet race. Obviously, session is what they mean by that, which means that whilst it looks perfectly dry on the Grand Prix part of the circuit, where they start this from the pit lane, as you said, Johnny, go out, do a complete loop of the Grand Prix circuit and rejoin on the grid. They are just looking at the number 1 Audi there, bolting on a definite set of wets. That's not even a set of injuries, that's a set of full wets. Michelin's going on to that number 1 Audi. Around they go onto the pit and they sit there, and all the heat goes out of it again.
Well, yeah, and it must be frustrating to do that, because you've got all the build-up on the pit road. I wonder whether the number 1 Audi was actually going to fire into life there, but it did eventually. You have a Grand Prix lap, which, yes, you can work out track conditions from that, and obviously you get a full green flag lap as well, a warming up lap effectively before you go for a first time of 2. But it's this ability from the qualifying driver to sort of switch off, recharge like Frank Schnippler was doing in the downtime, and then really hit your marks when you need to. And you kind of wipe out, for those drivers that have just done qualifying 1, you have to eliminate all that information now. Think, I might have made a slight error here and there, forget it, because you are into a completely different session now, where again the slate is wiped clean. And all the 4 times that have been previously set in Q1 do not count in qualifying 2.
Well, drivers have a race brain and they have a qualifying brain, and the 2 aren't necessarily linked, and they do need to be swapped, rather like an old-fashioned cassette CD. You take one out and put the other one in and sort of reprogram it, or however you want to look at USB or whatever it is these days. But that's how they do it, and they do need to do that. And it's a very different mentality going out into qualifying. You've got to be precise, whatever. And you've also got to know when you've got it wrong and when to let it go and give it up. And sometimes, because you're pushing that bit more, you're 9/10 at least, possibly a little bit more, 9.5 maybe, because you don't want to put it into the wall clearly. But when you have made a mistake or something's happened and you've lost out, there's no point in trying to get it back again. And that's you've got to say. And certainly something like here, do that once on the circuit and it's gone, and you just may as well just slow it down. But not slowing to somebody else's way, clearly, but just say, I've tried my best, it's done.
But Emanuele Pirro in the Le Mans sessions last weekend, when he got to interview the four pole position cars in LMP1, LMP2, GTE Pro and GTE AM, Emanuele making the point that really around an 8.5 mile lap, you're never going to get the perfect lap. And I think that's even more so when you're talking about a 15-16 mile lap, or 25.3 kilometers if you prefer.
Now, talked about the number 1 Audi having a set of preheated. Remember that phrase? Remember what that thing's about? Warm tyres going up onto that car as it came onto the grid. Now, different Audi there having a set of slicks being swapped, parked on the grid on its jacks. tyres being taken off it, a set of wets being taken off it, even though we saw that wet race being declared as it's a notification to the drivers of what this session really is.
Yeah.
We don't have a wet session, which just says wet race. Means it might be dry here, wet further out on the circuit. But that Audi having its tyres swapped from wets through to slicks, and I'm just looking at the 101 BMW. I think that's on slicks.
Slicks, if not
Change the mate.
Well, they are Yokohamas. That's why I'm getting confused. Yes. For the Valkenhorst BMW. Slicks or Inters. I couldn't tell whether they might have been a hand cut.
I think it's a hand cut
slick.
Inter. Yeah. It was a vague pattern, wasn't it?
Very slight. I mean, there was virtually no tread pattern at all, but I did think I spotted a couple of grooves there. Meanwhile, the number 8 Mercedes, there are definitely grooves on that Michelin tyre, and they are being torque wrenched into position to make sure that they are bolted onto the car correctly. That's a slick for the Mercedes, isn't it?
Yeah,
the Porsche, I beg your pardon, the sharp end of the field. Dennis Olsen's car.
Oh, Dennis Olsen. Oh, no, it's not.
No, I think that's
hand-cut slicks. There you go, on the number 18 Dennis Olsen Porsche. So a variety of tyre choices going here. We've got everything from, we've seen cars go out to this grid already for this qualifying on full wets, full slicks, and intermediates hand-cut in between.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's a last-minute decision.
Oh, completely.
I would say absolutely honestly now, unless looking at what I'm seeing right now in front of me and relating to you guys is, I don't know the rest of the circuit. Clearly, we don't know the rest of the circuit. We can't see that. I would not say it's a wet tyre. I'm going to say that now, and of course, it gets onto Nordschleife, and it's absolutely tipping it down.
Yeah.
So it might be completely the wrong thing. They'll have the intel there. We don't know that at the moment. But at the moment, this part of the Grand Prix circuit, we saw that at the end of it, though. The sunlight was coming through. It was bathed in sunlight, looking that we went all artistic and fluffy about it, didn't you? For a moment, it caught you out there. But it looked great. On the Nordschleife, not so much. And let's face it, GP circuit, it's a very small part of this lap in reality. I would say it's gone slightly overcast again now compared to what it was even just half an hour ago. Slicks, I don't know. The number 1 Audi left the pits on full wets. I'm intrigued to say now they are indeed getting different tyres. Oh, are they? There's a different set of tyres coming out for that Audi. No, they've been taken away again. So is that because they've been changed and we haven't seen them changed? There's something we've missed, or we've got a minute to go, so there's no more decisions to be made. That's it. What tyres you're on is what tyres you're going out on now.
Yeah, and that decision was probably pretty much locked in when the tyres were hurled over the tyre wall. So Yokohamas for both Valkenhorst Motorsport BMWs, and full wets, I would say, for the 100. Definitely a cut slick, intermediate tyres for the KCMG Porsche for Dennis Olsen. And just spotted on the boot lid of the 42 Schnitzer BMW the phrase "Godspeed Charlie" for the late great Charlie Lamb, who of course we lost in January last year, wasn't it? Now time really does fly, but he so much part of the Schnitzer team for 20-odd, 30-odd years, and yeah, the resplendent Godspeed Charlie still on the back of that 42 car in his memory. So different tyres to be thinking about. Michelin, I was going to say Goodyear, but I don't think we've got any runners. No, we do have one runner on Goodyear's, which is the Octane 126 Ferrari.
Swiss team, yes.
Yes, on the Goodyear tyre, which formerly was Dunlop, of course, for Bjorn Grossman, Simon Trummer, Jonathan Hershey, and the qualifying driver, who is Luca Ludwig. He will start at the very back of this 17-car lineup. And the black and red Abalone sponsored machine, which is the 30 car, the Pro-Am lineup for Alex Muller, who will be doing the qualifying there. So we've got Dennis Olsen, who's already been sent away on his intermediate Michelin tyres. Nick Yellowly for Rover Racing in the BMW M6. Interestingly, not Alexander Sims, nor, well, I mean, it's such a strong lineup there. You could have picked one of 4 randomly, no problem at all. Sims, Katzberg, Yellowly, or Philip Eng. It's cut slicks for Chris Meese in his number 29 Audi, which is the Lant Motorsport car that starts from 5th position and the 3rd in line of the pre-qualifiers. Remember, There's something going right for the qualifiers from Q1 to Q2, because 3 of the 4 bagged 1st, 3rd and 5th in the starting order for Dennis Olsen, Frank Stippler and Mauro Engel. And you're better off being at the sharp end of this long line of cars than towards the rear. We probably need some headlights for Daniel Juncker-Deer's Mercedes. He turns them on now, in fact. That is the number 22 car, I believe. And Daniel Juncker-Deer in car 22 for 10Q Racing Team. I think also on Michelin's. That's one actually that's missing from my list so far. And 1 or 2 of the press shots for 10Q Racing Team haven't revealed, obviously, what tyres they're on for this weekend. Schnitzer definitely on Michelin's, as was the Get Speed Mercedes up ahead of it in line of, who do we put at the wheel of that? Mathieu Vaxivière. It is in the, which bit of paper to look at next for Schnitzer BMW. That was Farfus, I believe. And then the 100 car with Henry Valkenhorst at the wheel of that. Yes, it was Farfus in the 42, Mirko Bortolotti in the number 3 Audi, Henry Valkenhorst in the 100 BMW, Raffaele Marciello, who I think is just about my favourite, actually, in the bright yellow Mercedes, although track position could go against him in this 17-car lineup. He starts 16th. And there goes Luca Ludwig with the Goodyear tyre on the number 26 Ferrari from Octane 126. And is that a team that had a victory on the road in an NLS? And then... Correct,
round 3, I think it was, had it correct. And then the left rear was found to be an incorrect compound, or a compound that wasn't on the approved list.
Yeah, okay.
As we said yesterday, for those of you who didn't listen yesterday, but weren't listening yesterday, so not didn't listen, a different thing altogether, was that it was, the team thought it was a tyre that was on the list to be able to use it, and unfortunately Goodyear had said they hadn't sent it through to the list of the organisers, so it hadn't been approved. It was perfectly legal and correct to use, it just hadn't been put on the list. It was an admin error, and it cost them the overall victory in one of the early rounds of NLS, which is absolutely gutting, because they drove the wheels off that car to get it through to that and into a winning position, which was a great shame.
There was a story actually that emerged from Le Mans last weekend that one of the Aston Martins, it might have been the class winner actually, had been found out to be running 2 tyres that weren't on the allocation. That was judged to actually be Michelin's fault though, rather than the team. So the steward looked at it and said, we can't do anything about that because the team, as they thought, were using absolutely the correct tyres, and they'd just been given 2 from the wrong batch.
Well, I think
it can happen.
I think it's common sense. You
totally.
could say a slightly benevolent view, but I think it's a common sense approach. If the team are trying to, they always say, don't they? Nothing's wrong until you get caught. And when a team's trying to do something that's blatant, okay, fine. Obviously not in this case. I'm not suggesting that for a minute, but it has happened in the history of motorsport, unbelievably. People have tried to do different things. If you're trying to do that and get caught, you get caught. But if you're not trying to gain an advantage, and it's proven, I think that's a very practical and common sense view from the organisers, stewards.
Well, it puts your faith back in the fact that every incident sometimes has mitigating circumstances. You've got to look at how you've ended up in that situation.
Exactly.
And, did the team set out to do any wrong? Totally not. It was an innocent mistake by Michelin, and the steward has taken all of that into account, and the result still stands from last weekend. Anyway, back to the matter in hand, which is very definitely all about GT3s. The lion's share of them run on Michelin tyres, but let's not forget the 2 BMWs that are on the Yokos, and that lone Ferrari with the turbocharged V8, 3.9 turbocharged V8 for Octane 126 of Switzerland, and they are on the Goodyear tyres. We also have Hong Kong stoutly represented on the grid, courtesy of one KCMG car, which has progressed from Q1 into Q2. The rest of the entries very much from Germany: Rover Racing, Phoenix, Fricadelli, HRT, Audi Sport Team, and the Lant arm of that. We've got Phoenix Racing represented on the grid. Team Schnitzer, as already mentioned, Get Speed as well in their Pro-Am entry, with the number 9 car from Get Speed, which is Fabian Schiller, Maxi Gertzenbuch, and Raffaele Marciello, who's doing the qualifying.
What we were just waiting to, I was thinking there was one word that would actually sum up the track at the moment, and that's greasy. Just whilst you were just running through a little order for us, Johnny, there was a great helicam shot for a moment, and obviously aerial, but really quite high up. It almost looked like a scalextric track. But the BMW you could see coming through the corner that was literally twitching all over the place, almost like a toy car. So it just proves just how really, really greasy it is. It's very, very different conditions than when we started. Up to the carousel now. We commented, didn't we, on the cars going out to the grid, what a different selection of tyres and people changing things, quite literally sending the car out from the pit lane onto the track, only around the GP circuit. It's not 10 minutes, just around the GP circuit to come and form up to start this qualifying session. It was the number 99 Rover Motorsport BMW I was commenting on before, by the way, sorry to seeing it now. But even to the point of leaving the pits on one type of tyre, doing a lap at the GP circuit and parking up, as it were, and then mechanics running out with 4 tyres over the pit wall to change that tyre, change of mind even in that time.
Yeah.
So that's how variable it is. And of course it can be totally different from the other side of the circuit. I love this place and this event.
It is like nothing else, and sadly it's not like any previous time that this race has ever been held, because you imagine the festival atmosphere now. Friday night, nearly 7 o'clock, the barbecues and the bars would have been bustling. We haven't got that in 2020, but we need it back just as soon as we can, because I can't deal with the Hatson Back and Flansgarten just being completely empty car parks and campsites. Anyway,
it's only temporary. We've got racing. I know it's a vital element, and it's obviously it's a huge fan zone as well. But we have got racing. Better that we've got this than absolutely nothing at all. And hats off to all the organisers and teams and people involved in all logistics to get this the show on the road. No pun intended. But we have got a 24-hour race. It starts tomorrow. We've got a last qualifying session going on right in front of us now. Olsen is the man at the top of the time sheets currently, isn't he? He's the man.
Yes.
Dennis Olsen is the man to be watching.
He is, as far as his performance in Q1 was concerned. But remember, the time set in Q1 are wiped now, and they've got to do it all again. And it is worth stressing that point, that the times produced by Dennis Olsen, Frank Stippler, Maro Engel and Daniel Juncadea no longer stand into qualifying 2. Very much like the three-pronged affair for Formula 1 qualifying. It's merely to get you into the next session. And we have 4 cars progressing from one to the other, joining the other pre-qualifiers, as I've already mentioned, 13 of them in total.
Now, that yellowly driven number 99 M6, the Rover Racing BMW I was commenting on, that might have been twitching, but it might well have been, but it doesn't seem to bother him. On his couple of sectors in there, he's already, sector 2, he's 2 seconds up on Olsen. On sector 3, he's 3 seconds up on Olsen.
Yeah.
Already.
And 3 purple times being produced by the BMW. However, of course, he has become the first car on the road, I think I'm right in saying. So Dennis Olsen yet to appear at the end of sector 5, whereas the BMW is about to head across the line now. And these times are very impressive. So let's see what is offered then from the BMW in a moment or two. This will be to complete the first of a couple of laps, and decent speed through Tiergarten as well for Nick Yellerly.
Sector 8 as well.
Yeah. But this will be to start his quick lap, won't it? Because they've only just been waved away from the line. So, right, start the quick lap now. Warm-up lap, most impressive. And let's get going for the first competitive outing for Nick Yellerly, who has leaped ahead of Dennis Olsen on the road. And that crucial clear road out in front as the 4.4 turbocharged V8 powers into life. And then the next car across the line is likely to be, I think Dennis Olsen's gone missing, because he was the first car, remember, out from the line, and I can't see Dennis Olsen at the end of sector 5 yet.
No, good point, good shout there. I think you're absolutely, I'm not thinking you're right, you're absolutely right. It's not appeared, it's done sectors up to 4.
I was sort of wishing that wasn't the case, but something has happened on this warming up lap for Dennis Olsen, which means he's not even going to get to the end of sector 5, and there are 9 sectors on this lap, remember.
Well, that could be a shot. We've got yellow flags shown at Callanhard on the exit, so whether that's, no, that's not the right place, is it? So that's a bit of a mystery at the moment, why we've got Dennis Olsen, star of NLS so far this year in 2020, let alone this weekend, but he has not got around the lap at the moment. It's appeared static on our timing screens.
Also, one or two bits of information coming through from one of the German commentators on site, Patrick Simon, who's a big friend of Radio Show Limited, making clear that Chris Meese and Dennis Olsen were on the softest slicks, normally for coldest temperatures, which, by the way, the teams say they will probably be running all race as crossover to the medium track temperature slicks at 20 degrees Celsius or so. But it was a hand-cut, shallow type grooves which were on the slicks. But I just wonder whether the KCMG Porsche has just not found the grip at all. We have lost Dennis Olsen somewhere in the 5th sector as the Land Motorsport Audi has decided to basically forget its first qualifying lap. They have come in to change tyres, and this will mean that when they go back out again, they'll be onto a timed lap, but forget the slicks. It was the wrong decision for Land Motorsport, Peter Snowden.
Going off slicks onto wets, complete change. So as you say, it brought the lap, the number 29 Land Audi into the pits. Those slicks coming off it in a matter of moments and onto full wets, not intermediates, full wet. So that does tell us that, and other teams watching from down the pit wall, getting the intel, looking at what other drivers are doing, why they're changing those tyres, what's the reason. It's out there, it's wet, it's horrible. So got quite a bit to, you've got 2 laps to do this, and they've forgiven a lap already.
Yes,
so fine.
And there are 3 cars doing this, we should make the point. Chris Meese is in, Augusto Farfus has come in the Schnitzer BMW, Mirko Bortolotti has come in the number 3 Audi Team Sport car as well. So 3 cars choosing effectively to do 1 lap, but on the better tyres here, because when they are released from the pit lane, this is going to be a timed lap, which is going to be nowhere because there's a pit lane included in it, and then you go for your quick one. Talk about high pressure here. Could one of these 3 cars that have made a late decision to change their tyres still manage to snatch pole position?
Well, it couldn't get more exciting. And this is before the race.
I know.
We thought qualifying was going to be at least interesting, but not quite like this. The 29 Audi out on track.
Yeah, and the Rover Racing BMW is wasting no time in the hands of Nick Yellowly, but we also shouldn't forget about Raffaele Marciello. I did say the Swiss-born Italian, who was released from the grid as the penultimate car, has already done the best sectors 1 and 2 of anybody else running in this. But Yellowly, in the longer sectors in his Rover Racing BMW, has just done a 1:11.7 through sector 3 and an 11.2 through sector 4. But really, a lap time can hinge on sector 5, which is a good 2 minutes 20 when you're motoring, and sector 9. It's really important to be fast down the Dottinger Höhe as well. Augusto Farfus still being held by his lollipop man here, saying, wait, wait, wait. We are still deciding on tyres, I think. Why on earth otherwise is Farfus not being released? Unless it is because there's a fast car expected through any moment, but everybody else is a third of the way around the lap. So I don't think it's that. I think it's Schnitzer leaving their choice of tyre to the last possible moment. Nick Yellowly on a charge, and we're going to get a sector 5 time very shortly indeed. It's a 2:01.9. That is mighty from Nick Yellowly. He's the first car on the road, so we haven't really got anything to compare it with, rather. But an absolute best through the middle sector of the 9, sector 5, and a 2:01.9 is very good indeed, and perhaps indicative that the track is gaining grip as we go. I'm slightly concerned about the yellow flags that had been being shown at Callenhard until fairly recently.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning. Do you think it's anything to do with the...
I think it has to be.
Has to be for the Dennis Olsen car. Where's sector 4 ending? Just where's your... Got your sector bit there.
Yeah, Callenhard is in the middle of sector 5, so that would fit, which is where we lost Dennis Olsen's KCMG car, somewhere in the Metzgersfeld, Callenhard, Verseifert area of the lap, and we got sectors 2, 3, and 4, no problem from the Norwegian, I should say. Dennis Olsen having an off, got to think, in sector 5. Yellowly backing up his Sector 5 time with another purple effort. But Mauro Engel is all of a sudden going very strongly in his number 4 Mercedes. Engel is at a now forced where there is a definite dry line. No trees there, crucially. And that part of the circuit looks to be offering a great deal of grip for Mauro's tyres. Pretty sure we put him on Inters, and he runs the French rubber Michelin. I also think...
We're getting reports that Olsen's Porsches had technical issues at Callan-Hard, so that means that hopefully... Okay, it's out of this qualifying session, gutting, yes, but it's not gone off, therefore not damaged. If it's a technical issue, hopefully it can be recovered and sorted in time for the race tomorrow. So thanks for that, Nicholas. That's great information. So we'll see that. That's why it was right. That's a yellow flag at Callan-Hard. So it's probably just something just parked inside the track. Yeah.
So not tyre related, crucially, and it won't be very long before Mauro Engel heads towards Metzgersfeld and Callan-Hard. In fact, he was pretty much there a moment or two ago, so I guess he will have to look out for a stranded blue and white Porsche in the KCMG livery, and the flag marshals will be doing their best to warn Mauro and everybody else in the session that there is a stranded car there. But you've got to think that it is in a reasonably safe area. Yes, there are yellow flags, so that prevents anybody from going incredibly quickly through Sector 5, but all the other sectors are definitely raceable or able to be qualified through. So Mauro Engel has gone quicker than Nick Yellerly through Sector 5. He's also quicker than anybody else through Sectors 2 and 3. So this is going to be a very good lap indeed for Mauro Engel. You would expect nothing less from a guy who is vastly experienced behind the wheel of a Mercedes, whether it be an SLS or the more modern AMG. The man from Munich, now 35. And he is powering his way up the hill. You might be able to hear his V8 in the background as he goes through the super quick stuff, even in the wet weather conditions. A slight lift before back on the power, and he continues to haul up the hill towards the carousel.
He's completed 6 sectors of this lap, 4 of them being purple.
Yeah.
He is on it.
Totally.
38.26 for that, compared to others of sort of 39s. So he's almost a second up there straight away. But, you know, stunning performance so far from Mauro Engel. As you said, we expect nothing less, no pressure, but he just always does it. 9 sectors on this one, on the lap. So 2/3 of the way through. The BMW continuing on its way about to complete its lap.
Yeah, and now
that's Yellerly about to complete his first flying lap. Sorry, I cut across you, Johnny.
Not at all. This is going to be a good indication as to what's possible in this session for me. Nick's going to get another go at it.
9:08.6.
And the time earlier was slower than that for Dennis Olsen. It was a
9:11, I think.
9:11. So really not much of a difference between the two. But Marciello marching on from 16th in the grid order, remember, and somebody else to keep our eye out for is Daniel Juncadella with all his recent DTM experience for Mercedes, but he's been a superstar in the single-seater ladder as well for a number of years. And Daniel Juncadella, somebody else that could easily sneak beneath the radar because he started further back in the lineup that were released from the start-finish line. But the 29-year-old from Barcelona is a real star as well for me, particularly around this place. It's a 9:30.7 from Alex Muller in the number 30 Fricadelli Racing Porsche. We're waiting for the orange and black number 4 car rather, for Mauro Engel. But what can Frank Stippler produce? Remember, he was in the earlier session as well, so has already 3 laps on everybody else.
He was also in this morning session, and he topped that when it was wet.
Is a good point.
He's fastest man on the track this morning in the wet session, so and he's pretty handy, isn't he? Pretty useful.
Yeah.
In anything like this.
But I'm afraid when you look at the time, 19 seconds is what Nick Yellerly has been able to find compared to Frank Stippler's time, and Maxime Soule produces pretty much the same for Get Speed Performance. Nick Yellerly appears to be in a different league right now, but I might reassess things when Mauro Engel crosses the line. Fred Vervisch, who was in the lineup for last year's winning Audi squad at Phoenix. Vervisch produces a 9:27.8. Maro Engel, I think, just behind him on the road. Marco Wittmann in the other BMW, looking very strong. Do you know, I wonder whether BMWs are going to be good here. Juncadella to the top. It's followed by Marcello.
Marcello right at the top, 9:06.2. Suddenly taken 2.3 seconds out of Yellowly. That Yellowly time was stunning. Marcello said, I can match that. In fact, I can go a bit better. Do you know what? I'll go 2 seconds quicker.
And Mathieu Vaxivière slipping into 4th place in another Mercedes. But what's happened to Maro Engel? Here he comes now out to Tiergarten to stream across the line. Will Maro Engel go quicker than everybody? He's got Daniel Juncadeia's time to beat. Yes! 3.1 seconds he's found on everybody else.
We were talking 9-minute 11s. It suddenly went to 8, down to 6s, down to 4s, down to 1. Are we going to see a sub 9 minutes? Come on, somebody on this session. Who'd have thought that in these conditions? Literally, second by second, the times are just dropping. And this is supposed to be wet.
We have 3 Benzes at the sharp end of the field. I thought BMW were going to be the chassis to have because Rover produced 2 really good times from Nick Yellowly and Marco Wittmann, but it's Engel by 3.1 seconds and a 9:01.6 who tops the first round of times. We still do have cars coming through to complete their first of a couple of laps, and let's not forget the 3 pit stoppers who we won't get to see how good they are until the end of their second lap. Christopher Meese for Audi, Mirko Bortolotti for Audi, and Augusto Farfus for BMW Schnitzer.
Yeah, I assume Augustus Farfus got out because he was held for a long time in the pit lane. We weren't really sure why that was. He couldn't be there now, surely.
No, he is circulating, that's confirmed, yeah.
Wow, I thought Yellowly's time was stunning. Marcello's was even better. Juncadella said, I've got better ideas. And that chap Engel, exactly as you said it, said, I'm still going to keep an eye on Maro Engel. And all of a sudden he just went, thank you very much, I'll do a 9:01. Nearly broke the 9-minute barrier.
Which in the wet is just phenomenal. Blows the mind as to where he's finding the speed. We're still a little way away from sunset.
It takes certain physical elements to be able to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's the one thing we cannot put across via our radio coverage is the sheer physicality of muscling a GT3 car, a modern-day GT3 car with all the G-forces around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. This track has existed for very nearly 100 years. We're 7 years away from its centenary. The track does not change, but the machinery gets more sophisticated and quicker year on year, and the driver, the human being element of that, has got to deal with the forces and be able to compute everything, all the information that's being hurled at them by breakneck speed. Mirko Bortolotti has reached the Kleine Carousel. Christopher Meese is onto the Dottinger Höhe. These will be slow laps for the 2 Audis in question because they've done a pit stop, but they will have sufficient heat, I would argue, in their tyres now that they have finally, they hope, gone for the right compound or the right mixture of groove versus slick. And slick tyre, quite clearly, the wrong choice for the Audis.
Can I just do that thing where I add something else into the mix? Look a little in the Atlane 126 Ferrari. Fastest second sector time, 44.2. It's currently residing in 6th position.
Yep.
That's the man that's driven that car to the end of its races in absolutely stupendous style. That said, Mr. Engel has just set the new fastest sector 4 time on this lap.
Okay.
So not content with just popping to the top with a 9:01, surely he's not sitting there thinking, what can we do? Can it start with an 8? I just wonder. I think to the motor team, I think it starts with an 8. And they would go, box, 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 this lap. Yeah. We know what driver. We need the car for tomorrow. Tomorrow, just.
Well,
yeah.
That is the thing. How hard do you push to grab all the headlines tonight and run the risk of running the car off the road and into a monster accident? Luca Ludwig, son of Klaus Ludwig, who has huge history around this place, and the 31-year-old from Bonn in Germany is at the wheel of that Octane 126 Ferrari.
Sector 3, 1:09. That's a second quicker than Engel. Sector 4, 10. Again, a second quicker. That car, Luca Ludwig, has absolutely got that Ferrari flying. This is the latest generation of the 2020 model year car, GT4 F8 GT3 car. They are utterly stupendous. Swiss team, currently lying in 6th. We'll keep an eye on that for the end of it there. He's in sector 5 at the moment. Can he pull a surprise in the Ferrari and put a Ferrari right up at the pointy end at the start of this? It's such a short race, and it's only 24 hours. All this work in qualifying to do it, and then you've got a whole day's racing. You think of the emotion that we're going through now for this, and we're sitting here talking about it. They're in the cars, they're the teams, they're working it all out, saying, can we do this? And Maro Engel, I wanted to start with an 8. I've decided that's what he's doing in his head.
Well, the other thing is, for me, the different types of session that motorsport can offer. You can think about the single laps, where it's all about pure speed and pace, and then you think about a 24-hour race in producing not necessarily the quickest lap times over and over and over again, but a consistent pace. You've got to switch through drivers, and you've got to rely massively on your team as well. Over the line goes Augusto Farfus to complete the first of 2 laps for the Brazilian, and a 909.485 is his effort. Now, bear in mind, that car did come in to take new tyres, so he must have done a lap around the Grand Prix circuit to go again for a proper lap, because a 909.485 is right up there, puts him 5th with the tyre change at the start of that lap.
Well, Maro Engel is at the top. He's gone quicker in sectors 5 and 6 now, but if you do the cumulative of the Ferrari, Luca Ludwig is actually 2 seconds up on Maro Engel's time. I say that he's actually now lost 3 seconds in sector 5, so he's now a second down on that time, which is a great shame. Great purple section again for sector 6 of Maro Engel at the very top of the timesheets. Can he beat that 901? Can he dip into under 9 minutes? A 901.608 is the fastest time at the moment. But just bear in mind, that is 3 seconds clear from Juncadella on a 904.7. He's that far ahead. I thought the Ferrari of Luca Ludwig was going to challenge that. He did all the way through, no pun intended, being a Ferrari Challenger car. It was GT3. He was 3 seconds up at one point, and he's lost a bit. And again, he's just slightly behind on the big sector. Was sector 5. He lost 3 seconds to Maro Engel in that sector. He's brought it back again in contention. He was only a fraction off in sector 6, but I think it's not going to be. He's not going to challenge Maro Engel. Engel, though, I think he's coming into our sight. He's going to be. Can he get into 8 minutes, under 9 minutes?
You tune to RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, and this is an enthralling top qualifying sessions, plural, because the first session produced 4 cars that would then be included into qualifying 2, and then we are left with 17 cars all gunning for pole position. In the next few moments, Maro Engel will stream across the line, but I'm really keen to find out how Luca Ludwig is going to do in the Octane 126 Ferrari as well. That Augusto Farfus time, 2 laps now completed for the 42 car, and it put him 5th. That was legitimately a flying lap, so it looks like the Schnitzer BMW is done. Also in the pit lane, Mirko Bortolotti in the number 3 Audi. He has posted a 9th fastest time, and Chris Meese in car 29 will only go 14th after that hesitancy from Team Lant and their Audi. Over the line in a moment or two will come the number 1 car with Fred Vervisch at the wheel. Decent sector times. Where will that put the Belgian? Vervisch crosses the line now, does improve, although will stay in 12th position.
Checking flag, Johnny.
And that will be seen by Raffaele Marciello, who also improved on that lap to now go 3rd. So we have Mercedes-AMG GT3 from a similar car in 2nd, and another car in 3rd. And Marciello, in fact, crossing the line now with a 903.118. So Marciello does improve by 1 spot from 3rd to 2nd for the Swiss-born Italian.
Puts it a row up, though.
Crucially, at the moment, it's a front row start, yes, for Marciello, but Juncadella might yet have something to say about that.
So might Luca Ludwig, and so might indeed Engel, who will be on his last sector as we're talking now, so he'll be coming to sight very shortly. Engel crosses the line, 8 minutes, I said it would be. 8 minutes, and not just dipping under. It was a 9:01 before. 8 minutes, 57.8. 2 seconds clear under there. Job done. Thank you very much.
And that has surely got to be a strong suggestion that you ain't going to go any quicker than an 8:57.8. He is over 5 seconds clear of Raffaele Marciello. There was no improvement from Daniel Juncadella because he backed off and lost 30 seconds on his earlier quicker lap one time. The only one we're waiting for is the Octane 126 Ferrari with the 2020 specs. So this is the Evo version of the 488 GT3. And there's no doubt about Luca Ludwig's pace mid-lap. He's produced the quickest sectors 2, 3 and 4.
We're about to find out. You're going to cross the line now. We're going to get a Ferrari in the front row, are we?
Needs to find really a 9 minutes. It's yes, a 9:02.8. That does put him on the front row. He's not quicker than Engel, but he is quicker than Raffaele Marciello, and it will be a Mercedes and a Ferrari. Who would have thought that? On the front row of the 48th edition of the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. Peter Snowden told me to look out for the young man Luca Ludwig. He's been a talent in NLS this year for Octane 126, and that was a firm bit of limelight on his shoulders. He really delivered.
I can hear Bruce Jones in my headphones going, calm down, Peter. Yes, it's still a 24-hour race. But I've been championing the case of this Ferrari and all four drivers, the whole Swiss team in that car. But Luca Ludwig, and it's just been absolutely amazing in that car. No disrespect to the other three drivers in that car, but he has been something stupendous. They won one round, then had it taken away because of the tyre. They nearly won the 6 hour that John Hindhaugh and I covered on only a few weeks ago and really would have done, but they just ran an extra strategy. They tried to do an extra lap on the strategy and had to do fuel saving on the end, and they, of course, Audi Sport Boys took advantage of that on that final lap, came through the woods and took it from them 1-2, but they still finished on the podium. That car's been knocking on the door of the pointy end of this and the podium time after time this series so far. I'm saying, I know this isn't a round of the NLS series, but effectively it is for the cars competing in this category. What a great job there. Who'd have thought that there? Mario Engel on the front row, if he'd have set it on pole position to us this morning, yeah, that's a probability. A Ferrari on the front row, you'd have thought somewhat unlikely. A betting man probably wouldn't have put a lot on that, but Luca Ludwig has grasped it by the prancing horse and driven it around. And we thought it was going to be a Lamborghini. We thought the Italian car at the front was going to be that Conrad Lamborghini.
Yes. Yeah, very good point.
Mapelli up there at the front, more Mapelli saying that car been really the form of all this sessions all the way through. And it's the other guys from Maranello just said, actually, do you know what? We were building cars before you were. So, yeah. Let's not forget. You know,
8:57.
We could get their Formula 1 cars to go as well.
Yeah, a moot point that. 8:57.888 is the pole position time from Mario Engel, held in fully wet condition, well, halfway house conditions. There were dry lines here and there. There was still wet track as well for the German to negotiate. An awesome lap from Luca Ludwig. Yes, he's 4.9 seconds away from Mario Engel, but he's Mario Engel, and the crucial thing is we got a Ferrari on the front row, the 488 from Octane 126, and all Mercedes-AMG second row. Raffaele Marciello with a 903.1 compared to the 904.7 of Daniel Juncadella, and it is a BMW lockout for the third row, one from Rover Racing and Nick Yellowly, a 908.6 produced by an Englishman alongside Brazilian Augusto Farfus for Team Schnitzer in his M6 GT3, a 909.4. Mathieu Vaxivière 7th for the Get Speed Performance Mercedes gang. Marco Wittmann has put the Rover Racing BMW, the sister car, in 8th, number 98. 9th position for the best of the Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW's 9th for Christian Krogner's car 101, and Maxime Soulet in the Pro-Am Get Speed Performance Mercedes 10th, ahead of Mirko Bortolotti. Disappointing session for Audi number 3. Likewise, I would say, for Frank Stippler in the 5 Audi. Fred Vervisch in the defending title-winning car from last year, number 1, only 13th for Fred Vervisch, and he'll start alongside Alex Muller for Fricadelli Racing in the Porsche. Christopher Meese, 2019 Lance, starts 15th alongside the 100 Henry Valkenhorst Motorsport car. Henry, the last driver across the line, with a time just over 10 minutes. And Dennis Olsen, well, big question mark, what could the Norwegian have produced? A technical issue meant that the 18 KCMG Porsche ground to a halt at Kallenhard. Wow. Yes, it's a 24-hour race, but don't take away top qualifying, because that is awesome Friday night entertainment for me.
Just while you're running through that top 10, Johnny, there was a quick in-car shot of Maro Engel bringing the Mercedes into it, and it was such an in-car shot, quite physically, looking at him from the passenger side, the right-hand side, across to him on the driving side of the car, sitting there, and he came in and he literally is punching the air with not one but both hands. Obviously very, very happy with that. And he's just like, you've qualified on pole for the 24-hour. Stay calm, you've got a whole race to do yet tomorrow. Yeah. But you can see that obviously there was a huge release of adrenaline and satisfaction there that, yeah, we just bagged pole position for the 50th running of the Nürburgring 24-hour in extremely tricky track conditions. They got it all right, they judged it right, they got it around to perfection. Maro Engel there, what a stunning job. But a Ferrari on the front row as well, that's quite incredible. Wasn't expecting to see that at all. It's made me very happy though.
I'm sure, yeah, and I mean, nobody quite thought that the 488 would feature in second position. We have had years previously when a Glickenhaus started from pole position. We had a Ferrari actually going back to the P45, I think they used to call that, and Fabrizio Giovanardi, when Glickenhaus used to run that started from the front row as well. But I'd be interested to tonight, later on, look back on previous starting grids to find out when we have last had Ferraris that far up. The Bockenspiegel Team Monschau Ferraris of Rinaldi Racing are normally pretty good in qualifying. Sadly, we haven't got those cars here this year. However, everybody involved in top qualifying now goes into the all-important Parc Fermé little quadrant there, and the cars will be checked post-session to make sure that everything is legal. Let's hope they are, because I hate leaving a qualifying session with a set order in my mind and then it has to be changed overnight because one or two cars are found to be illegal. But let's hope that everybody has crossed the T's, dotted the I's.
Don't start bringing things like that in.
I know.
You just start the Machiavellian plots before we even get to the race. We've got 24 hours of that tomorrow. You just back in your box.
There's opportunity to do that and speak at length about subplots and subplots probably. Maro Engel is delighted with that performance. He was quickest in the first wave of laps, and he went even faster to be the only car below the 9-minute mark. You might think, below the 9 minutes around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, that's not very quick, but bear in mind we had the wet weather to contend with as well and the drying track. Luca Ludwig, what a talent. His eyes are on stalks after that.
Absolutely.
He's put a Ferrari on the front row for Octane 126. I'm delighted for that Swiss outfit. And his dad, Klaus Ludwig, I'm sure is somewhere on site. I've just been willing him on. Luca Ludwig to the front row. Mighty performance.
And not looking overly happy about it. That's the driver bit, isn't it? He's not got pole position. He has put a Ferrari on the front row, but it's not pole position. Maro Engel, somebody called Maro Engel, is quicker than him. Yeah. And it's that driver bit come out of him again. You can see that look there. Yeah, it's all right, but it's not the fastest, is it?
Klaus Ludwig is there indeed, and ready to congratulate his son in a moment or two. But yeah, he's probably thinking about the whole of the lap previously. Where could I have found 4.9 seconds? It was out there. There was the opportunity. But I think he should be delighted, and I'm sure he'll get a good night's sleep tonight as well. Brilliant to see the father and the son there. And he'll say, I taught that boy everything he knows.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I brought him up well. Yes. But great father-son interaction there. Klaus Ludwig, you know, an absolute star in cars over the years himself, and great to see his son Klaus there. Luca doing a great job in that GT3 Ferrari, putting it on the front row. As we said, we knew there was an Italian car there in the mix, but I say all sessions long. Sorry, we've had 2 days of this so far. We've got the race to come yet. We've had 2 days of this, 4 sessions. You and I've known that Italian car at the top has been that Conrad Lamborghini Huracan, which has been very impressive, and we thought it'd be there or thereabouts. Where is it now?
But way down. I mean,
what's happened there? It's been hit by that Ferrari.
Yeah, and the car, just reminding myself, didn't pre-qualify for Q2 and didn't get into the top 4, so he's going to start, I say way down, that's being a little bit harsh, but the Lamborghini will start from 23rd position with Marco Mapelli no doubt the star driver in that. But to be honest, that session, qualifying 2, sort of took everything up a further 4 or 5 levels, and we realised where the Lamborghini Huracan was in the grand scheme of things. Can I just take this opportunity to just remind you of Klaus Ludwig's CV? A Le Mans winner in 1979, 1984 and 1985. He's been a DTM champion in 88, 1992, 1994 and FIA GT champion in 1998 as well. Could Luca Ludwig be about to step into some very big shoes there?
There's a serious pair of shoes to step into there.
But I got to say, I was aware of Luca Ludwig. I knew he was in that Ferrari this weekend. I didn't expect him to pluck that lap time out of nowhere. Weather's definitely had its part, and where you were in the order might have helped Luca that he was stone last in the 17-car lineup. But that's just the way that the order of the cars come out of the hat.
Definitely played into his hands. Now, Johnny, just a thought. Tomorrow's race, the start. I'm going to say 2 words.
Yes.
Turn 1.
Yes. And will it be raining by that point as well? But the Yokohama S is so awkward. And bear in mind, this field of cars is released in 3 separate start groups of about, what, 40-odd cars each. It depends where the splits are in a relatively low number of cars. We'll sort all that out in our countdown to green tomorrow. But it is always phenomenally busy. And that first group will contain all of the GT3 cars, the SP9 entries.
But you know, of course, they're going to behave like absolute gentlemen now, completely spoil our build-up to it, and just all go through it nice and neat, but then sit there and go, oh, we don't want any incidents.
No.
But we usually see somebody running wide, or maybe it was somebody spinning mid-pack and everybody managed to avoid them. We don't want any damage, of course. Don't want any cars out that soon at all, That's going to happen. But I'm thinking, what my point is, that run down to turn 1, Mauro Engel, Luca Ludwig.
Yeah.
Mercedes versus Ferrari. You've got to be sitting there going, you've got to have your team saying to you, it's 24 hours, it's 24 hours and only so many seconds now, 59 minutes and so many seconds. It's only just started and you've got to resist that. But it's not in a driver's mentality to do that in a hurry. You've got to train them to do it and tell them to do it actually and ban them almost. No, do not go for it.
A lot of these drivers have been around the block for a number of years and they know the race cannot be won through the first corner, but a big question mark now is who's going to be installed into each of these cars for the opening stint. We know just about who the quickest driver is because they were all put out for qualifying, but you've got to leave those guys back for the last couple of hours in the race leading up till 3:30 on Sunday afternoon. This race starts at 3:30 Central European summertime. Then we'll have the full build-up here on the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Warm-up before that as well. So although all of the qualifying is done and the grid is set, there is still the opportunity for, I think it's an hour-long warm-up tomorrow morning, and a chance therefore to get to grips with, well, the current condition of the track, hoping that it will stay the same from warm-up through to the countdown to green and then the green flag itself. So an 11:15 through till 12:15 warm-up session with a 3:30 race start time. I'm surprised it's taken Peter Snowden all day to release the catch on my seat, which lowers me by about 3 feet, but he has now put that in.
Well, Joe just came in and said that Johnny Palmer's getting above himself, so I thought I'd just bring it down a lower level. See what I did there?
Oh, very good.
Now, I'll tell you what, one thing I did know for tomorrow was, tomorrow night I'm not going to sleep, because we're going on this through the night. Having just seen that qualifying session, I'm not going to sleep tonight now, because I'm just too excited about that first corner.
You're wired. I know. It's very difficult
I've been called worse.
It's really difficult to get that out of your mind, the top qualifying session, and I hope that we've now got you hooked for the N24 if this is new to you. It's one of those hidden gems within motorsport, but a delight to be calling it for RS1 and the Radio Show Limited network of channels. I can't promise the race is going to be that exciting all the way through it, but it'll come close, I think. And the opening hour, and particularly the closing hour, are relentless in terms of action aplenty. So, confirmation that we will be back For warm-up tomorrow, 11:15 Central European summertime, 10:15 in the UK for an hour-long session. And it'll not only be Peter Snowden and myself, Johnny Palmer, but we'll be joined by Joe Bradley, Nick Damon and Alex Brundle throughout the weekend. I hope you do get some sleep tonight, Peter Snowden, and join you. Now, I'm not sure where you are on for warm-up tomorrow.
No, not at the moment. No,
okay.
We're on a bit later on.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to your stints come the race and try and keep up to speed with what promises to be a cut-and-thrust race throughout. An immense GT3 battle, I'm sure we're promised for the rest of this weekend. Thanks to all involved today, and join us again tomorrow for the 11:15 warm-up. Bye for now.